I'm Nadira Hussain. I hope many, if not most of you know me. What I wanted to do before we launch into the panel discussion is really give you an overview of what the Women in IT initiative has achieved over the last year. And this is just a great opportunity to promote, to sell, to really give you a view of the immense achievement that I think we've been able to deliver. I'd set out on a mission to, I suppose, change the perception, the view of the society, to introduce more gender diversity and a more balanced view of both what the society represents and more generally and more widely across the sector. And it's really encouraging for the first time since I've been attending the Socitm conferences to see more of a gender balance at this meeting today. So I hope that's a reflection of the good work that we've done over the last couple of years, coupled with the Women in IT initiative more specifically. So it's been a fab year, and I just want to give you some highlights. Women in IT is one of the Socitm policy priorities. From my perspective, absolutely fabulous. Martin, well done. If he's in here, where is he? Fabulous, Martin. I'm so pleased that it's become a formal part of our programme and our concentrated efforts in trying to address the gender imbalance that we're talking about. In terms of some highlights, I don't want to go through all of these line by line, but safe to say, we've had some great achievements over the last year. We've established a steering group that's helping to formulate a forward plan and detail the work that we want to do beyond this year. More than anything else that I could have dreamed of, we had thought about putting together a leadership programme. Empowering Women in a Digital World. Nice long title, easy to remember, UDU as we call it. That's been running for the last 3 or 4 months. The participants and the women who took part in that programme are here today, some of them who can make it, and they'll be here at the dinner this evening receiving their graduation certificates. So absolutely lovely to see them all here. Can I say a special thank you, because I see our Canon colleagues at the back. They have been immensely supportive, both Canon and Oracle, in helping us getting the programme to where it is. So thank you very much, Dave and co. We have also put together some mentoring and coaching. So that's really supplementing the programme itself, but we've created a separate mentoring pool that will act as a bank that women colleagues can delve into when they want some specific advice, guidance, etc. A couple of other things there. Just in terms of the EWDW, we have Arend in the crowd there. He's from the Netherlands. We've been talking to Arend about any potential that we can work more further out in Europe as well. So some real progress being made. It's important that we recognise our female talent. So for the first time, Vanessa Valleli's We Are the City, we have started working with them and put together a category specifically for government and public sector. So hopefully some of you have taken the opportunity to nominate some of your female colleagues to take part in that awards programme. For me, it's about embedding this good work, making sure that we have an established support network for women going forwards. But I also now want to focus my efforts on getting more younger girls into IT, tech, but more specifically public sector. Public sector isn't seen as sexy. In the last couple of meetings that I've been to where I'm talking to young girls, trying to encourage them, they're more in the kind of entrepreneurial mindset. What I want to do is explain to them, raise the awareness about the 700 plus services, the wealth of opportunity that you have to help supporting vulnerable people, the diverse jobs and roles that you have the opportunity of delivering in public sector itself. Finally then, a lot of work in terms of reaching out to other groups, so the BCS Stella and the BCS Women's Group, so making connections. This is not about delivering things in isolation. It's about tapping into networks that already exist doing the same type of work. So through collaboration, we can achieve better results. And more recently then, probably last couple of weeks ago, a Women in IT supergroup's been established, and hopefully through participation in that, I can start looking at how we improve the visibility of the public sector and how good it is to come and work for us. So lots still to do, but I think we've made some good inroads. I think we've got, the timing is right, and we've got the spotlight on something that is so important. It's not about just working with the women, it's not about preaching to the converted. I think menfolk need to be helping us and supporting the initiative, and I suppose helping create the environment that will give their female colleagues the opportunity to progress and diversify their workforces. So that's it from me until we come back and have some more questions and answers. And that's it. Oh, sorry, yes, of course. Thank you for reminding me. I want to showcase the video, I forgot. So just a quick video that will show you what we've achieved through the leadership programme. Thank you.
Well, we put this programme together as part of the Socitm Women in IT initiative. And really, change is about people. So all the people on this programme are involved in change. And the key to helping people through change is leadership.
I think my point of view was, what is this going to bring for me? And I was quite apprehensive to start with before the course. But as soon as I came into the room, I felt completely engaged.
I think our aim is to inspire, motivate and empower the participants, to really give them a safe space where they can step out of their comfort zones and really focus on some of the unique challenges that women face in leadership.
When I started the course, I was quite low down, I wasn't anybody's manager, and I found it really, really helpful, even at that level. I think leadership's important for everybody, and actually as a result of the course I've been promoted, so that's been really good for me.
I'm more confident, so when I started this course I said I wanted to feel more respected, I wanted to be more confident, and I actually am a lot more confident. I actually went up the other day and I said, right, this is what we're going to do if this doesn't work. Never have done that before. I would have thought it, but never said it, and nothing went wrong, as Robin likes to say, nobody died. I didn't get into trouble. They actually said, yeah, we'll do that. If this doesn't work, we'll do that.
I think we become better leaders by understanding what stops us. And part of the thing that stops us is this thing in our head, our brain. So I think the course kind of is bringing that out.
I think the structure of the course is brilliant. You've got a business coach, plus a mentor, plus the workshops. Plus you've got the network opportunities around the course as well. Having all those work together, I think makes the course really good value. Because it's not like going to a course for 2 days, cramming it all in and then thinking a week after, what did I learn from that? What can I remember from that? You've got 3 months, you learn something, you go back to the workplace, you practice it, and then you come back and you can bounce it off the workshop, you can bounce it off your coach, you can bounce it off your mentor, you can get feedback and think, okay, I've got another month, I'm going to try that again. So it's real and the change lasts longer, and then you really focus on what has worked and you take it forward.
I think when you're working, you're very, very busy, you've got a home, family life, and you're just sort of like mulching along and you're doing what you need to do. And this course really just allows you to take a step back and focus on you and think about you for a change where normally you don't have the time. So it's not like we don't have the skills there, we do have the skills, but it's just becoming aware of them. But yeah, it's been fantastic.
Ultimately, our aim is to build confidence, to build capability, and at the end of the day, accelerate their careers.
Hello everybody, I'm sure very few of you do know me. I'm not sure that I know too many folks, although I have come across 1 or 2 people. So first of all, I feel a little bit of a fraud in that I'm not actively engaged in very formal initiatives, and certainly I've got colleagues here doing some fantastic stuff. But what I do have, I suppose, going for me is that I am a female and I do care passionately about women in IT, and I have had a 30-year career in IT and I've had the most awesome career. And it is an absolute passion of mine to help young people generally, but certainly also young women and women who are moving out of IT, worryingly, to try to understand why that, why would they do that? This is the best career you can have. And I know I'm preaching to the converted, but I try to explain to people, what other kind of profession can you have which is so wide as well as so deep in terms of the variety of things you can do? And I do sometimes wonder when I reflect back on my career. I left school at 16, so I'm afraid I haven't followed a particularly mainstream view of the world. There were some personal reasons at home, some illness, and so I left at 16 with the obligatory 5 O-levels, and I sort of faffed around for a few years, not quite sure what I wanted to do, and I got into a decent organisation. I got into Roche Pharmaceuticals, and I spent a few years doing HR and marketing. And then I got into IT because I was one of the people trying to write some IT programs to get some information out of systems, and folks said, you should get into IT. So I got into IT. And my point, I think, then is that back in those days, IT wasn't on the curriculum. You didn't really have to have any great formal qualification to get into IT. And actually, what I saw was a very diverse group of people in IT. But of course, we had punch card operators, and guess what? They were the women. And we had the very technical people, and guess what? They were the men. But we also had project managers, we had business analysts, we had people who were out there interfacing with the community and with business. And they were doing really well, and they were often women. And what I wonder today is that as we've got IT on the curriculum and we've got IT in our pockets, everything's about apps, everything's about kids programming at junior school and infant school. But I wonder sometimes if what that's done is created too much of a geeky kind of focus on technology. And I'm not suggesting that's not a vital thing, it is vital. But there's also a load of other stuff that's vital, that's about communication, about project management, about stakeholder engagement, about relationship management, emotional intelligence. That's actually what's really necessary too. And I don't see so much emphasis on that. So from my point of view, I do spend some time talking to schools, I go to universities, and for a brief time I was involved with BCS Women. But I think for my sort of sins, I'm more interested in a focus on making people understand what IT is all about. I do care about the female agenda, but I also get a little bit shuddery sometimes because I kind of worry about the chaps in the room when we have these topics of diversity and gender, and I kind of just want to focus on getting the right people for the job, and I want to focus on making sure everybody sees the great opportunities. But I understand we need to do something to move it forward at the moment. If we do nothing, then every instinct tells us it will get worse because the numbers are reducing. So I agree we need to do something, we have to focus, but I get a little bit edgy sometimes, so I'm afraid I'm a little bit controversial on the gender diversity conversation. That's me.
Thank you. Thank you both for your opening remarks there, and there's obviously plenty to think about. But if I could start with you, Nadira, in asking, you've mentioned the progress that's been made, you've told us about some of the initiatives that have already happened. The obvious question is, where next? You mentioned embedding. What does that look like?
So we have established a number of mechanisms, including a knowledge hub space that we've put together in terms of a collaborative tool that we can use to share information and experiences. So that's on the go. I've talked about the mentoring pool. So Steve, who has been the lead in putting the programme together, has been coordinating lists of people who would be willing and wanting to help others through the mentoring process. So although we've specifically requested in some instances to support the leadership programme some women mentors, that pool can be diversified and is actually, we do have a mixed pool, so that will be tapped into for other initiatives. We have a second and a third cohort of the programme already in place, the second one imminently due, and the third one that I talked to Steve about, trying to do one specifically for the London authorities. And I'm sure we've got, through the women who've already been through the programme, they have identified other women colleagues that would benefit from the programme itself. So a part of the programme itself is for women to feel empowered and to apply their learnings back in the office, back at the ranch, but also cascade some of their learning to others. So this is about embedding. It is about giving our colleagues the opportunity to reflect on what they're learning and apply it in a more proactive way. So hopefully that will be one aspect. The second then is really about, so we've established a network and a support group. How do we encourage others to join that? How do we attract the young female talent that we are missing? So my second year will focus on, one, continuing with this embedding process, but two, talking to schools and other established communities of good and best practice so that we can tap into those resources and move out more than anything else. And we were just in a group meeting earlier on, you know, local government, public sector is not seen as sexy, right? So you wouldn't naturally get young girls or boys thinking, I'm going to be a public servant. It's about raising some of those, you know, the awareness and putting together some campaigns that will attract younger people into public sector.
Thank you very much. Well, so Joanna, let's bring you in on that. You mentioned that you know, it's perhaps we've had too much of a geeky focus. I wonder if you can comment on some of the misconceptions around the work that is available in this sector, and how do we convince people outside about what those opportunities are? You mentioned they're much wider and deeper than people may realise.
Well, I think, can you hear me? Because I speak fairly loud anyway, so I don't want to shout and then boom. So I think essentially, for me, one of the things is definitely about this point about communication and relationship management. And we need to do more about talking about that. So when we talk about IT, you know, there's the stereotypes. There's, you know, programs about the IT guys, you know, the folks in the basement. And yes, all of my guys, believe it or not, are in the basement. It's just, you know, it's just unbelievable. But I've nowhere else to move them because that would be into the wards. So I think we have to get a broader sense of communication about what IT is. I think we need to look at the curriculum. And of course, programming is important. I understand that, but I just worry that that's what people think of when we talk about IT. So talking about project management, promoting the importance of project management, communication, managing relationships with people, and making clear that those are really rich opportunities in the world of technology. Clearly you need to understand about technology. So I think, I agree with you, Nadira, it's getting into schools, it's getting into unis, it's getting better communication at the graduate recruitment fairs, those sorts of things.
Thank you very much. I know we have Chi Onwurah in the building. Welcome, Chi. We'll let you just take a seat. Do you definitely want to go through slides, or are you happy to join a conversation? Or
I'm happy to do whatever people would like.
Why don't we continue a conversation? Because actually your arrival is well timed, well, for many reasons.
But I should say I had the Queen's birthday debate, followed by a 3-hour dental appointment. Oh. So it's been an interesting day so far. Things can only get better.
Well, we're delighted to have you here, and we've been talking about the challenges of getting, obviously, women into particularly public sector IT. I don't know whether you could just comment on the broader landscape, actually. Obviously, you've had a private sector background, now working in a parliamentary role, so seeing the public sector. What progress have you seen, and what barriers remain for really engaging women in the IT industry?
Well, I always say, it always surprises people, I say that the House of Commons is the most diverse environment I have ever worked in, because I spent the previous 20 years in IT. You know, the House of Commons is not representative of the country. We had a large debate about it just last week. It's not representative, but it is much more representative. We have a third of members of Parliament, at least, are women. It's much more representative than the IT industry. And I think what always dismays, but also inspires me to look to make change, is that there has been so little change in the numbers since I went to Imperial College to study electrical engineering in 1984. What I would say, and I was discussing that today actually with my colleagues on the Labour front bench, is that what I have seen is much more talk about it, but much more talk by people in leadership positions, not only women, men as well. you know, he for she, as it were. And I think the realization has come, and I'm, you know, that it isn't only about sort of getting the numbers right or a nice to have, but it's actually about creating teams and companies and departments which are innovative and creative and represent the, you know, the best of our of the country and humanity, as well as being able to deliver great solutions and great IT solutions. In fact, one is part of the other.
Thank you. And I guess perhaps the sort of last couple of questions from me, and then I'm keen to open it up. In all of this, we know this isn't just a public sector problem, it's private sector as well. So my question would be, who is best placed to act on this? Who, and maybe if each of you can pick a different one based on what the previous person says. And what should the goal be? Is it 50-50? Is it just, you know, 10% better than we are now? What should we be aspiring to? Perhaps if I can start with Joanna.
So I mentioned to you my view of things like numbers around 50-50. So I just want the best people in the best jobs. And I don't know if that means we can get 50% of men or 50% of women. Maybe it should be 70% of women and 30% of men, because maybe the emphasis should be more on the softer skills and less about the technology. We're outsourcing more and more, who knows? But I think, so I'm less concerned about numbers. What I would like to see is just the trend line moving up. So I would just like to see a trend line showing more young people going into technology, more young women going into technology, and I would like to see a reverse in the decline of women moving out of technology. And to your question, therefore, I think actually, in having come from a private sector background, I surprised myself with this. I do think the public sector is better placed to do this. I certainly think from an education point of view, we can start in the education environment and make sure this is better understood through that curriculum process. Get successful women and men in different roles in IT talking to kids so they've got a broader perspective.
Thank you. Same question to you. Yeah.
So I think it is probably far better and easier in the public sector. Women specifically are attracted to the public sector due to the flexible environments that we operate in. So that is a bonus. When we talk about, you know, it is better in the public sector in terms of the representation. I requested Socitm to conduct a survey last summer. 3 main questions asked of our members and our suppliers, partners. So, what's the percentage women make up in your ICT workforce? What is the representation on your management teams? And what's the percentage of apprentices that you attract? The first and the second, probably in the order of about 33%. The third one, and better therefore than the private sector, so that was the comparator. The third one, the number of apprentices that we attract, somewhere in the order of about 19%, whereas the private sector are attracting about 25%. So a significant dip in the public sector. Whether it's 50-50 or otherwise, I think I shared Joanna's view there. But I do think we've got to do some proactive work to get to a baseline first before we can drop the proactive approach that we have to women in IT initiatives. I ideally would want roles to be advertised and the best person for the job to get it. Of course we do. And there are 2 schools of thought here. So some women who absolutely detest the fact that they may be selected as tokens and therefore, you know, fulfilling the requirements of the organisation. And therefore want to be based. It's a merit-based appointment. Others, of course, of the view that, well, how are we ever going to get ahead of the game if we don't have a fair, a fair kind of position to start from? So, absolutely want to see some progress. It would be great to get to that 50% level, but we've got some work to do before we get a good baseline in place.
Okay, and finally, Chi, who acts and what's the goal that we should be aiming towards?
Well, I think the goal that we should be aiming towards is quite clear, quite simple for me. It's really actually for me, it's that boys and girls, young men and women, children should equally be able to make choices about their careers based on what interests them, what excites them, and what inspires them. And on that basis, you know, I believe huge numbers will decide to go into engineering and IT, because that's all about changing the world for the better and delivering fantastic progress that people can touch and see. And I suppose, you know, and I think naturally, you know, if people can make the choice, if young people, children, can make the choices based on their own capabilities, abilities and interests, and not on a society which tells all girls to wear pink and hold, look at and have washing machines for toys, and tells boys to wear blue and have robots. So I mean, there is a huge amount of work to be done in different areas. When it comes to targets and numbers, you know, I think this idea that you're not there on merit if you're part of a target, I mean, do we really think that it's on merit that there are more male MPs in the House now than there have ever been women MPs in the history of democracy in this country? I mean, do we really think it's purely on merit that there are, you know, 93% of the fellows of the Royal Society are men? Do we think it's purely on merit that only 6% of professional engineers are women? You know, it's the fact that it's not on merit now, and that is what needs to be changed so that it is on merit. And we need to look at what we can do to effect that change. And I think, you know, for both the public and the private sector, and you know, as you said, I've worked a long time in the private sector. I did work in the public sector for Ofcom before joining our House of Commons. I think it's really about transparency and about rewarding success. So, you know, it took me about 3 years, I think, to get Google to give me their diversity figures, and they still only do it for the world globally, not for the UK specifically. I want to see the diversity figures for public sector organisations, for engineering and IT departments, and I want the leaders in those organisations to feel that they are personally responsible for improving them. Now, whether that's about their bonuses, whether that's about sort of naming and shaming or naming and praising, whether that's about how that works, you know, different ways can make it work. But I'm just not going to sit around for another 25 years where nothing changes. You know, it's not an option. And I think increasingly that's not an option, not just simply for us in the Labour Party, but also for the Conservatives and those, you know, generally we've seen with the move, the progress making in having more women on boards, you know, and having more women in the cabinet as well as in the shadow cabinet. It's just not an option that we should go on for another 25 years and not make a progress in IT. You know, it's not an option.
The numbers speak for themselves. Do we have any? I'm afraid there have to be very, very brief comments or questions. Anything from the floor that we'd like to ask our panellists? If not, I will also, one from the back, Martin.
Yeah, I just wonder, thank you, I just wonder if you have any sort of thoughts about what are the key things that men need to do to change and to enable the environment to be much more conducive to women succeeding in IT.
It's a good question, and I'm going to have to put you on the spot and ask for a 30-second response each and use that to summarise your thoughts. Joanna?
I don't have a view that it's a man's or a woman's problem to solve. I think it's our problem to solve.
Okay. More engagement, Martin, more proactive support for women colleagues, and encouraging them to apply for more progressive and senior leadership roles, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that men can do. Some of my best, in fact, there's so few women in my career that had to be, all my best mentors were men, because I don't think I ever had a woman boss, but some fantastic mentoring and leadership by some men, making and encouraging women feel really welcome in the lab or the IT department. I think you have to make that extra effort to make women feel welcome, because you probably cannot understand what it means to be in such a small minority and how that isolates and how that attacks your own confidence. So going that extra level to make women feel welcome, and also talking about it, and not only in sessions entitled Women in IT. Talk about it in other sessions too.
Powerful points. Thank you very much indeed. This could be a much, much longer debate, and it has to be ingrained in a much wider discussion. Can I suggest, I think with the video probably still struggling to buffer, perhaps if we can send that link round, would that be all right, just so we can make sure that that's seen together with the slides, which come out on Monday. But please do take a chance to have a look at that. Spread it amongst colleagues to make sure that they're aware of this message as well. For now, though, thank you very much indeed to Chi, to Nadira, and to Joanna. Please put your hands together. Thank you.